This is the 5-minute guide to the Brandenburg class pre-dreadnought battleships of the Imperial German and Ottoman navies. The Brandenburg class were the first German battleships that could be properly described as ocean-going as opposed to coastal defense units. As such, they also were the first German warships to carry radio communications equipment. The class comprised 4 ships: Brandenburg, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm, Wiesenberg, and Wath. The class was built in the first half of the 1890s and deviated somewhat from the standard pre-dreadnought configuration. This was in part because in the past German ship designs had been based heavily on the ideas of other nations, but with this class Germany dropped this idea and began designs from scratch using their own concepts. As a result, they were something of an experimental class, with half the ships receiving compound armor made of steel, iron and wood layers as a result of problems in delivering the Harvey nickel steel alloy they were designed for, and which was used on the remaining ships. The most obvious difference was the addition of a third twin turret amidships with the same caliber as the fore and aft turrets. However, this did not make them an early attempt at dreadnoughts, since they still retained secondary and tertiary batteries, and the new turret did not use exactly the same guns as the other two. The ships were somewhat slow, being capable on average of 16.5 knots as opposed to the average 18 knots of contemporary battleships. The main battery consisted of fore and aft turrets, each mounting a pair of 11-inch guns that were 40 calibers long. The central turret mounted a pair of 11-inch guns that were 35 calibers long. The secondary battery was 8 single 105mm guns, and the tertiary battery consisted of the same number of 88mm guns. 3 torpedo tubes completed the loadout. Unfortunately, the shorter length of the middle turret's guns meant their ballistic performance was different to the fore and aft guns, which resulted in a total broadside at close range, where the gunnery officers had to spot the ranging data for guns using 4 separate ballistic arcs. Between this and the blast damage caused by this turret to the ship's superstructure, the idea was not deemed to be a success. The ships were modernized at the start of the 20th century with the addition of a second conning tower, new engines and a reduced superstructure. They saw their first action when the whole class was sent as part of a small German fleet to China during the Boxer Rebellion, but due to the distance involved they arrived after the main siege was over and instead spent their time putting down local uprisings. With the start of the dreadnought era, they rapidly became obsolete, and in 1910, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm and Wiesenberg, the more advanced ships of the class, were sold to the Ottoman Empire and renamed Barbarus Hayreddin and Turgidrius respectively. The Brandenburg and Wath were assigned to coastal defense duties, though this lasted only until 1915, when they were withdrawn from active service and became barracks ships, until they were scrapped in 1919. The ships in Ottoman service experienced a dramatic downfall in capability due to lack of manpower and poor maintenance. In 1911, Italy declared war, and by the end of the conflict, despite spending most of their time in port and not actually fighting anything, they had condenser troubles which reduced their speed to 8 to 10 knots. The Ranger finders and the ammunition hoists for their main battery guns had been removed. Their telephones did not work, and the pipes for their pumps were badly rusted. Also, most of the watertight doors could not close. The next year the Ottoman Empire got into another war, the First Balkan War, and by then the ships were in even worse condition. They were sent to bombard the Bulgarian army, but their shooting was so poor their main effect was just to boost the morale of the Ottoman troops by being there and making loud noises. With all this in mind, the admirals in charge of the Ottoman Navy decided now was the perfect time to send their ships to break the Greek naval blockade. As you might expect, this went quite badly. At the Battle of Ely, within 5 minutes of the fleet's opening fire, the Greek armored cruiser Georgios Averov crossed over to the other side of the Ottoman fleet, putting them under fire from both sides. The Ottomans turned to retreat and fell out of formation, blocking each other's fields of fire. During the battle, Barbarus Hayreddin was hit twice. The first shell killed 5 men assigned to a damage control party. The second shell jammed the rear turret, putting it out of action. As this had clearly gone so well, they decided to try again the next year, at the Battle of Lemnos, after failing to lure the Georgios Averof away from the Dardanelles. Barbarus Hayreddin, Turgidrius, and other units of the Ottoman fleet tried again. This time they concentrated their fire on the Georgios Averof, and Barbarus Hayreddin turned north, to block the attempt to encircle them. But the old battleship Mesudi took a serious hit and a shell hit Barbarus Hayreddin on her amidships turret, killing the entire gun crew, followed by numerous hits in the superstructure, which created smoke that was sucked into the boiler rooms, and caused the ship's speed to fall to 5 knots. As a result, Turgidrius took the lead of the formation and they decided to break off the engagement. During the battle, both Barbarus Hayreddin and her sister had a barbette disabled by gunfire, and both caught fire as a result. Between Barbarus Hayreddin and Turgidrius, the ships fired some 800 rounds, mostly of their main battery 11-inch ammunition, but without scoring a single hit. In World War I, some of the ship's guns were removed and employed as coastal guns, to shore up the defenses protecting the Dardanelles. In the meantime, both ships were used as floating artillery batteries at the Nera naval base. In April 1915, the two battleships bombarded the British landings on the first day of the Gallipoli campaign. After Barbarus Hayreddin had fired 14 shells, the 15th detonated in the right gun barrel in the center turret, destroying the gun. After a shell exploded inside one of Turgidrius's guns in early June, both battleships were withdrawn. On the 7th of August, the British landed more troops at Suvla Bay, so Barbarus Hayreddin was sent to support the Ottoman defenses there. While she was en route to the area with only a single torpedo boat as escort, she was intercepted by the British submarine HMS 11 in the Sea of Marmara. The submarine hit Barbarus Hayreddin with a single torpedo and she capsized 7 minutes later with the loss of 21 officers and 237 men. In January 1918, the battle cruiser SMS Goeben and light cruiser SMS Breslau left the Dardanelles to attack British ships. At 11:30, Goeben ran aground and was subjected to air attacks, which impeded salvage attempts. A few days later the Turgidrius arrived and towed the battle cruiser back to port. Turgidrius survived the war and was used as a training ship in 1924. She was later used as a hulk in the Bosporus and eventually scrapped in 1938. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship review, let us know in the comments below.